Thank you, Honorable the President. The first supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable the Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. President. And with respect, I think you're confusing criminal liability with political liability. We know, you know, and the rest of the country knows that it is ANC cadres who are responsible for the corruption at Eskom. In your first State of the Nation address, Mr. President, you said, and I quote, "We will intervene decisively to stabilize SOE. The recent action we've taken at Eskom to strengthen governance, root out corruption, and restore its financial position is just the beginning," end quote. On the 4th of June last year, the then CEO informed the police and state security officials that members of your cabinet are involved in the corrupt cartels at Eskom. And these are serious allegations. On the 5th of July, he informed Minister Godon and your NSA, Minister Mufamadi, about these ministers who are involved in corruption. Yet it now appears that you have done absolutely nothing in your cabinet to hold these individuals accountable. We cannot sit here while R1 billion a month is being looted from Eskom, and you're trying to go after the small fish when the big fish are sitting around your cabinet table. Mr. President, why have you not made any efforts to identify who those cabinet ministers are and hold them accountable?
I thank you, Honorable Member. The Honorable the President.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Steenhuisen's last word is quite instructive because he says I should identify. The identification of anyone with regards to, say, criminal activity and corruption has to be done through an investigative process. Someone, an institution has to investigate that. And I could easily say, Mr. Steenhuisen, you stole my other beautiful tie yesterday. But someone has to be able to say, somebody has to be able to say, let us investigate whether indeed Mr. Steenhuisen stole the president's beautiful tie. Because if I go on just a whim and the story that, yes, you stole my tie without the evidence, without corroboration, without the investigation, then I'm flying on very thin ice. Because in the end, it's a beautiful tie. In the end, the process of investigation involves those agencies that are well adept, that are well capacitated, whose job is to investigate. And we as politicians can deal with whatever rumor. And it's very easy to make a rumor that so-and-so or an allegation that so-and-so is involved in this and that. But where's the evidence to back that up? And that is why in my initial reply, I said, those with evidence, those with information, those with full knowledge must go to the investigation institutions. They must go and report there. And that, no, I'm very interested. I'm very interested. Just as interested as I would be if I hear that you've stolen my tie, I would say, yes, let that be investigated. And that's precisely what I'm also saying here and now. That if there is any information that anyone in the executive has been involved in corrupt activities or theft, let the matter be investigated. And that is why I say without institutions who operate without favor, without prejudice, should be the ones that we put our trust in to be able to investigate such activities, rather than to deal with innuendo, rather than to deal with rumor, rather than to deal with allegations. I cannot possibly be able to lead on the basis of whims and innuendo and just stories that are bandied around. I need to deal with real evidence. And I've said over and over again, and the members on the opposition have always said, President, do this, charge this one. I arrest somebody, take them to court. I don't do that. And even if I wanted to do that, even if I wanted to do that, even if I wanted to do that and had those dictatorial ambitions, the rule of law that we have and the constitution that we have in this country would never allow me to do that. So in the end, it has to be done through due process of the law. It has to be done through the institutions that we have put in place. Because if the president then starts investigating his own ministers, then it basically means that we don't need the police. The president is the policeman himself. Then it means that we don't need criminal investigations because the president is the criminal investigator himself. And we cannot run a banana republic in South Africa over things like that. We cannot. That we will never do. So, and I repeat, anybody who has information, who has evidence about anyone, be it a cabinet minister, be it whoever, should come forward and put the information before the law enforcement agencies, and they must then investigate because they are the ones who investigate these matters. So, Honorable Speaker, I must say with respect, I'm not able to help Honorable Steenhuisen in this regard. The identification of people who might be involved must be done by the police and not by someone who does not have the capability or the expertise to do so. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable President. The second supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable JCN Mkhwanazi. What's happening there, Honorable Member? Take your seat. Then exit. Honorable Mkhwanazi.
When are we playing?
Honorable Mkhwanazi, please proceed.
What? Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Thank you, His Excellency the President, for the detailed educating response. Mr. President, considering that and reiterate allegations that senior politicians linked to the African National Congress are involved in plundering and perpetuating of corruption in Eskom remains dubious and untested, as the rate has failed to reveal those senior politicians as required to do so by SCOPA. Mr. President, Mr. President.
Order, Honorable Member.
Mr. President, has the government ever considered strengthening capacity of law enforcement agencies to assist Eskom in unearthing corruption and reduce the utilities dependence on private funded investigators headed by people with close ties to apartheid regime, and this is a threat to our democracy. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Mkhwanazi. The Honorable the President.
Yes, Honorable Speaker, thank you. Yes, Honorable Mkhwanazi, yes, the corruption and the malfeasance that has been going on in Eskom has always been a matter of concern to us. And a great deal of work has been underway, as I alluded to in my original response, with a number of people being identified, a number of them being arrested, being charged, either being disciplined or dismissed, and with monies being claimed. We are committed as government to assist Eskom as much as we possibly can. And to this end, we've set up teams that are currently busy investigating all acts of malfeasance. And there has been a great deal of progress in that regard. And on top of that, we've also bolstered our efforts to protect the nation's assets with regards to Eskom by deploying soldiers who are protecting our infrastructure installation at various Eskom power stations. So our focus is to reveal and unearth all these acts of malfeasance. And that is a process that is ongoing. There are teams that are led by top investigators that are doing this work as we speak now. And we continue to want to add more so that we strengthen their capability, so that we leave no room whatsoever for those who have been involved in acts of malfeasance, whether they are inside Eskom or even outside, whether they are suppliers or providing any service to Eskom. So that is precisely what we have been involved in. Hence, the success rate that has been made to have more than 5,000 cases that are being investigated and with their participants being involved means that work is being done on an ongoing basis. And I think that is what we should be pleased about. Now, this is a complete departure from what happened in the past. In the past, we either never heard about acts of corruption inside of Eskom, and wrong things were happening. Now we hear about them, but we don't only hear about them, something is being done about them because of all these acts that are taking place of getting people arrested and getting assets reclaimed and monies being paid back. So progress is being made, and I have a firm belief that we will continue to make progress in this regard. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable the President. Sorry, the third supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable A.M. Sheikh Imam.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Mr. President, Mr. Dirator has made a whole lot of allegations, but to date, despite numerous requests almost from the entire world, no evidence has unfolded thus far, including where he advised us that he informed Minister Godan, and I know you to some extent did respond earlier. Did Mr. Dirator ever draw your attention, Mr. President, to any acts of corruption in Eskom? And or did Minister Godan draw your attention to the statement that Dirator makes that he informed Mr. Godan that there's high levels of corruption and senior politicians are involved? I'm asking that so that the public can get a clearer picture whether there's any truth in what we are hearing or not. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Honorable Sheikh. The Honorable the President.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. We have always spoken very publicly and broadly about acts of corruption that have been ongoing in Eskom. Apart from what has been in the public domain, what was unearthed through the State Capture Commission just added to the stories and the narrative. So that whole process of the aura of, if one can call it aura, or the narrative of corruption has been known from whole contracts to a whole range, but never was information ever put about the personalities that are involved. And hence I say, the process of identification of all that is a matter that should be fully put before the law enforcement agencies. It should be properly investigated so that those who are involved should then be identified and dealt with. The Zondo Commission dealt and identified a number of names, but also felt that further investigation needs to take place. And in this case, where there is identities of people, we say, bring them forward, let those be investigated, and let's have a measure of finality over this. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable the President. The last supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable NLS Wangwa.
President, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. You're reminding me of your former colleague, your predecessor rather, who used to come here and say, evaluate his PDP, it can't be. Former
Sorry, I
President
didn't
Zuma
hear
used to
that.
say Former President Zuma used to say, evaluate his PDP, it can't be. You said you also can't evaluate his PDP. President, the fact of the matter, going back to the North Gauteng High Court judgment, we took you to court, by the way, and we won again. And I think what is important, President, is that it is especially the part where the judgment found that there had been repeated breaches by the state of its constitutional and statutory duties. And these breaches infringed the citizens' rights to healthcare, security, and education. The fact of the matter, President, whether it says with regards to the allegations made by the rate of R1 billion, or in the past where there was an overpayment of suppliers at Eskom to the tune of R4 billion, or whether it's the coal contracts, whether it's the evergreen contracts, corruption is endemic at Eskom. The question we want to ask is, should we then not get a firm commitment from government to say that some of the monies recovered in the fight against corruption at Eskom, including the revenue overruns that we get almost on an annual basis for the past 2 years, should be used or will be used to ensure that hospitals, police stations, and schools are provided with alternative sources of energy, so that you don't have hospitals like Corridor Hospital in the Eastern Cape, where they can sit with a malfunctioning generator for 2 months and some do not even have a generator. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The Honorable the President.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I did not speak about his pity. Revenue that is raised by the government, as well as monies that are claimed and returned to government, are obviously managed by Treasury. And Treasury, in managing the funds of the nation, has to take into consideration a whole range of matters. And primary in their consideration is the welfare of the people of South Africa. How best that money can be utilized and deployed. And they, in doing so, will look at various balancing acts that they need to embark upon. The issue of, say, alternative power sources for hospitals, for schools, and a whole range of other places, including places where food is manufactured, are matters that have to be decided on a case-by-case basis. It has to be what you need to take into account, how much power does a hospital need, and what type of, say, alternative source of energy does it need. And that is why we say it cannot be a one-size-fits-all, just a whole scale right across the board. Because if you were to do so, then you would be inadvertently causing enormous problems for the entire grid or the country by trying to solve one particular problem. So one needs to always think about the consequences of each action that we take. And so therefore, in the end, in managing the, say, if you like, for lack of a better word, the allocation of the energy that should be managed by an Eskom through their energy management center, they look at all that, how much energy should be allocated to this region. And when they do so, they also look at special areas like hospitals and a number of areas like that. So matter of how the fiscus would be able to distribute that, the overruns, as well as distributing monies claimed. I would not be able to respond to that because It is a money management matter that has to be managed by the Treasury themselves. And as I said, they take a whole number of consideration into account. But maybe a good thought that should be thought about. But you will find that all that has a number of other needs. If there ever is, an overrun of revenue, they will tell you that we already have an allocated area where the money should be deployed. But thank you very much for raising that.
I thank you, the Honorable the President.